Let's still keep our mood positive. We managed to connect.
Whew.
It's about overcoming challenges, right?
That is the theme for 2020. Yes.
Yeah, I believe so. Okay. Okay, we must be live. Say something in the chat. Everyone who's listening to us, thanks for waiting for us. And hello, everyone, and welcome to the series of Fireside Chat by Women Tech Network. We are inviting phenomenal and outstanding women to inspire and empower you to grow professionally. And today we have a special guest, Alexandria Noel Butler. Affectionately known as Lexi B, is considered one of the Silicon Valley's candid and most prominent voices. Her thought-provoking advice and opinions on how to create a more equitable work environment stem from her own experiences working in some of the most popular tech companies. Lexi B founded Sister Circle, Black Women in Tech, a community that supports Black women in tech companies and related professions. Lexi's main mission is to inspire people to create their desired lives by understanding their purpose and life goals. In her own words, people deserve to live the life that caters to their strengths and passions. Hi, Lexi, and welcome.
Hi, thank you. And so sorry about all the technical issues.
No worries. And I had issues in the beginning on my side, but what's
I feel like this is like a microcosm of 2020. So,
yeah, I think we received, what was very fascinating. I saw people actually kept staying, and the number of people.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And the number of people didn't really change. I think only maybe one person tried maybe to reconnect to see if I think more people are joining at the moment. So this is really cool. And thanks everyone for waiting for us, for your supportive comments in the chat, for understanding everything. And we are really, really happy to have you with us. And you know the drill. Whenever you hear something that resonates with you or you have any questions, let us know in the chat or in the comments. If we won't be able to take all of your questions, because I'm sure you're going to have, based on the amount of people we have, we're going to have lots of questions. What is the best way to follow up with you if people have questions, Lexi?
Probably LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay. We'll drop also. We actually pinned your LinkedIn here in the chat 38 minutes ago, so people could have found already you. And so let's get started. And you have this really cool. Today main topic is career growth and career branding, and I was super impressed with your career. But I want to start with, I want us to travel back in times when you were a child. What did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be Whitney Houston. That's what I wanted to be when I grew up. To be very, very candid. And it's funny because I actually did a lot of singing, a lot of dancing. So it wasn't this ethereal goal of oh, I don't have the talents, but I want to be Whitney Houston. It was very much I was really building this life and this career to go into entertainment. And then at around 16, 17 years old, I had a midlife crisis and I was I don't want to do this anymore. But that's what happened. Yeah.
I didn't know that you were into singing, That's very interesting. You call yourself a freedom fighter, and I think you truly are based on all of your talks that you have delivered. And I recall how masterfully you delivered actually a talk at Women Tech Global Conference 2020, and it still gives me goosebumps, the energy that you created. And you actually managed to deliver it without any slides for the first time that you shared, and it was really, really awesome. So my question is, how did you discover your true power to influence other people with public speaking and storytelling?
Honestly, I think it goes back to the first question. So growing up, my mom heard me singing in the shower. And I think many, many children, your parents put you in dance classes and movement classes. I was already involved in that. And my mom heard me singing in the shower and she was like, we should do something with that. So at a very young age, when most kids were, going to school and then playing outside after school, I was going to school and going to dance classes and going to auditions and going to theater rehearsals. And so it was really ingrained in me very early that there's something about a stage and there's something about how you handle yourself on a stage. So it's funny because a lot of people always ask me, how did you learn this trait of public speaking? And I really can't give you a specific response. I just know, just like any sports player, any football player, any tennis player, how they learned at a very young age. I do not remember a time when I was not on a stage. Now, I wasn't giving speeches, I was singing and dancing, but the whole idea of being on a stage and understanding stage presence, understanding how to connect with an audience, understanding how to tell a story, I've been doing since I was 4 or 5 years old.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
It's like it meant that you felt comfortable on the stage, right?
Yes.
You like the energy, you like how you can influence people from the stage, right?
Yes. Which is great because I'm actually very socially awkward and very much an introvert when I'm off stage. So the persona you see on stage, the person you see off stage. Yeah.
Interesting. You studied at Stanford, a dream university of many. What were some of the most important lessons you learned there?
I would say one of the biggest lessons that I learned was actually as I applied to go to Stanford, which was, I remember I was applying to go to Stanford. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. For folks who don't know, St. Louis is a city in the middle of America. And I remember going to school and telling people that I wanted to go to Stanford. And in the American education system, usually you start having these conversations in your second to last year of high school, of that age, with 16, 17 years old. It takes about a year to do an application process for college in the US. And I had teachers who told me I couldn't do it, even though I had the grades, even though I worked really hard to obtain these grades and I worked really hard to get the right test scores. And I remember I came home and I just was crying to my parents and I was like, I can't go to Stanford because everyone told me that I couldn't go. And at that moment, my parents were very concerned because for a kid growing up on a stage, I've been told no my whole life. I always joke with people and I'm like, I'm the easiest person to give feedback to because there's probably nothing you can say to me that I, number one, have not heard, or number two, is going to hurt my feelings. When you are 13 years old on a Broadway stage and you have to dance with adults, they don't mince words. So I've heard some pretty crazy things about me or people perceiving to me my whole life, for good or for bad. And so my parents were very conflicted because they were like, you are used to hearing people tell you can't do things and you do them. So why in this space is this crazy to you? Why are you internalizing this? And I still don't have the answer for it. And at that moment, it was my parents' goal to get me into Stanford because they decided that even if you don't go, you're going to do all this work just because other people told you you couldn't. And that was a huge lesson for me that I still keep with me, is that 15 years ago, everyone told me that I couldn't get into college. And I worked my booty off to get in. And with the help and a beautiful support system, I did it and went to the school of my dreams. And I remember at 18, 19 years old, as I did internships, I was like, oh, I can do anything, right? If these racist people in St. Louis said that I couldn't get into college, not even Stanford, just college in general, and I went to Stanford, there's really nothing you can do to stop me. And so I think having that mentality as an adult, every time a door closes, I'm either going to burn it down or I'm just going to find another door that opens. And then I also think when I went to Stanford, the biggest lesson was I learned how to dream. People don't teach people to dream. We teach children to dream. And then somewhere as they get older, we tell them to stop dreaming. And Stanford really taught me to dream. I remember going to Stanford and meeting all of these people from all over the world and having really interesting conversation about what they're interested in. And then also what their parents do. I always tell people, when you meet people, ask them where they come from, right? So I would meet somebody and they would say, yeah, I want to be a doctor. And then I'd find out that, oh, their mom was the chief marketing officer for Nestle, right? And coming from St. Louis, I never met a chief marketing officer for a chocolate company, right? And so learning about these opportunities that I could do because I saw someone do it, and this idea of dreaming, and that's what Stanford gave back to me that I think is stolen from many people's childhoods, is this opportunity to really look at the world and say, no, I actually really can do anything because anything is available to me. And even though I grew up in a household where I was told all the time I can be anything and do anything, coming from St. Louis, I didn't see everything on ground, right? So you can be told you can do everything, but if you don't physically see it on the ground, then that may not be obtainable to you. And at Stanford, it was very much like, no, like you could actually go run the department of the OPI nail lacquer company that just names the names of nail polish, right? Like I met somebody at Stanford whose aunt did that. And I was like, that's a job, right? It's like, oh no, you could actually go cure cancer, or like you could actually become a race car driver. And that was really cool to me, was not only to hear it again over and over, but then to see it physically. And that was really awesome.
Wow, that sounds like life-changing, and I'm very happy that you decided to go for it. I really love that your parents were creating this atmosphere at home that you can become and you can do whatever you want, because why not, right? I think for everyone who's listening to us, I think at least not once, several times in our lives we were told, but we cannot. And we also, when we don't see people who could be our role models, like what you are telling, you have pioneered that way. I think for many, you are a role model, like from your hometown, but also from on a global scale, I think, for everyone who's listening to us. And when I was checking your LinkedIn, and you have been working for big tech companies, Airbnb, Facebook, and now Twitter. How did you land a job in these companies? And why did you decide to leave these companies gradually? What was the main reason? What drove you, right?
Yeah. So I guess my first company was Netapp, which a lot of people don't know about Netapp. Netapp's a wonderful company. It's business to business, which is why people don't really talk about it, I think, in a popular culture sense, because normal people like us don't use Netapp products, but businesses use Netapp, and businesses use Netapp products. And it was there that I really got involved in program management and kind of solidified to myself that I wanted to be in the technology industry. I was at Netapp for 4.5 years, and I decided that I wanted something different. I wanted to go to a smaller company. At the time, I had a lot of friends at the Googles and the Facebooks and the Apples, and this sounds very petty and selfish, but I remember always thinking, whenever we hang out, they can say, I work at this company, and people know exactly what it was, right? And I was in my mid-20s, and I'm like, every time that I say where I work, it's like, what is that? And I hated it, right? So I decided, okay, I want to move to a new company. I want to be at a smaller company. The idea of being at a startup really, really excited me. When I was at Netapp, it was almost 13,000 people around the world, which is a mid-sized company. But I had friends and colleagues who had worked at startups. And a lot of mentors of mine said, you should work at a startup. So I was like, okay, I need to work at a cool sounding startup. Like, this really happened to me at 26. And so I started researching this online. What could this be? And at the time, Airbnb kept coming. I had never used an Airbnb, but I heard about Airbnb. This was when, at a time, Airbnb was still very, very small, but it was making huge waves from a PR and comms perspective. It was the hottest startup in tech. And I went online and I typed in program management on their career page, and they had one project manager job. And I was a program manager, not a project manager, but I was like, let's just put my application in. And I got very, very blessed. And I think this is the lesson, is that just put yourself out there, because it turned out that of all the people who applied for my job, the reason why I was chosen, according to my management and people that were interviewing me, was because I was the island of misfit toys. I was the program manager who had been at a company for 4.5 years, who in those 4.5 years had worked in marketing, finance, QA, and engineering. And my management and the people interviewing me, they were looking for someone who knew how to talk to different types of people. And so looking back, I thought that I would never get the job. But now looking forward, I'm like, oh, that was actually for me or someone like me. They were looking for someone who had all these crazy experiences. And even though I was in my mid to late 20s, I had been at one company for 4.5 years, and I had moved departments every single year.
Did you do it deliberately, that you wanted to actually Really?
If you want to tell the ancestors your plan, make them laugh. What happened was that when I was at Netapp, they would have a layoff every single year. And every year people would get laid off, and I was not affected, but it was like, oh, well, you're moving to this department. So it wasn't this deliberate move. It was people were moving me. And there were many nights where I was like, I feel like I don't have control over my career. I feel like other people at this company have control over my career. And so when I was applying for new jobs, it was very hard for me to brand myself. And there were a lot of jobs that I didn't get because people said things like, we don't know where to place you. Are you an engineering person?
Mm,
Are you a marketing person? Are you a creative person? And I was like, I don't know.
yeah.
I just need a job, right? And then Airbnb embraced that about me. They were like,
Cool.
so we don't really know what you are, but we kind of like that. And that's how
And we need that, right?
right. And I was like, cool, I like that too. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And when I was at Airbnb, I had this amazing opportunity. Again, it's luck and it's also being ready for the job. And I got to work on a lot of very interesting projects and programs because Airbnb was a startup. They allowed just anyone to be like, you want to work on this? Let's go do this, right? Because we're very, very small and nimble. And they had a huge diversity issue. There were people using Airbnbs who were saying, I'm being discriminated against because of the color of my skin, because of who I love,
Yeah.
because of where I'm from. And I got to be in the room and watch that go down and figure out, how are we going to fix this? And I got to work with like policy and legal and compliance and trust and safety and custom and product. And so within my first year of Airbnb, I had worked with every aspect of this company on an issue that I really enjoyed. And that's when I said, I am a freedom fighter. I think that I should claim that.
Yeah.
We should be working on things in engineering that say, hey, people are using our stuff for bad. And we need to check that and continue reminding people that our products are made for good. And so I was doing this work in this very interesting space. And then Facebook called and offered me an opportunity to talk about what that could look like on, international hate speech and privacy and, regulatory stuff. And that sounded interesting. So I left Airbnb, but not because I didn't like it. I really enjoyed my experience at Airbnb. Everyone who knows me, I'm like, Airbnb was the coolest place ever to work. But it was just that an opportunity came where I said, that really sounds cool. Let's talk about it. And then I moved to Facebook and I was at Facebook for almost 2 years, and literally an opportunity came up and I was approached and I was like, that sounds really cool. And what I loved about Twitter was that currently at Twitter, I do a lot of privacy work specifically, but in the interview process and talking to my hiring manager and the team, I said, but what are we trying to do? Like, what does it mean for Twitter to take a stand on privacy, considering privacy is the currency of the internet?
Yeah.
How is privacy also equity, right? How do we change the narrative around privacy and not make it this ugly thing, but really empower our users to really understand their rights in the privacy space and to understand why we have all these things on our platform? And I said, that sounds really cool. So I think the lesson here, as I'm being too long-winded, is that every time that I've moved to a different opportunity, it's because something sounded really, really cool, where it was worth the jump. I do not look at my career from this aspect of, well, I want more money, or I want, more management, or I want more this. I really look at my career of where I'm working. Is the stuff that I'm working on something that I'm really invested in? Like, oh, this is something that I actually really care about, right? And then number two, the manager. I'm very big on that. Is the person that will manage me, can we build this phenomenal relationship? Because I do believe that managers can make or break your experience at a company. So yeah.
Right. I was wondering, did you have any rejections? Like, you really wanted to work. These companies, of course, they're cool, and I think they're, again, the dream companies of many people who are listening to us. But were there some companies that you did really want to get in, but you didn't, and you were maybe even happy about it?
Yeah, I've been rejected from Twitter 2 times before I moved there. I was rejected from Facebook 3 times before I moved there. I've been rejected from Netflix. I think I was rejected from Apple. They just never got back to me. And I think that the thing about it is, everyone in tech gets rejected. You're going to get rejected more than you get accepted. That's how this works. Like, gonna put that out there. So and so when I was much younger, I would get very down in my feelings about it. But now that I'm older, I really say this is not the time. Considering that I work at companies that 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I was rejected to. So it wasn't the time. It wasn't the time for me to go there. Right. And so I always tell folks that what is for you will 110% be for you. And you have to put yourself out there. But as you put yourself out there, people will say no to you. But all of these people, I think sometimes we put people on pedestals. And I always tell folks, please don't put me on a pedestal, because I'm literally a human. Like, I could sit here all day and tell you every single time that I've been rejected, and the number is insane compared to the number of times that I've been accepted. Right. And so you will get rejected. That's really just part of life. But when you get accepted, it all makes sense, because you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be. And that sounds very cheesy and very fairy tale like, but it's very true.
I agree. And I think some things don't happen for a reason. And as you said, for example, about Twitter, but now you understand that the experiences you had before have enriched you to get to the stage where you are, and you're happy about what you're doing, right? And changing at the company and with the company, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering, who were your important mentors and sponsors who contributed towards your career growth?
Oh my gosh, too many to name. But I will say, I think the better strategic question is, how do I choose a manager or a sponsor?
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, a mentor.
This is really cool. Yeah, I think relevant for our audience.
Right. So I have a lot. I'm not the person that believes having one mentor. That's a time. I always tell people that, especially as a woman and as a Black woman, I need mentors for different things. So I have mentors that just focus on this aspect of my life, right? And then I have mentors that more focus on the holistic. I definitely have a mentor that I really turn to when I'm talking about marriage and babies and career and, feeling guilty and like, how do I prioritize? That's a conversation that I have with this specific person, because I feel, we just have that kind of bond where she can be very candid. I had a wonderful conversation with another mentor of mine yesterday, talking about performance reviews and what do I want to convey and blah, blah, blah. Right. And she's perfect for that. And so I think that, number one, you should always have multiple mentors, because they fit different aspects of your life. I'm not very big on this whole asking people to be your mentor. I think it's very weird.
Yeah, can you be my mentor? Can you marry me?
Right. I just, like, number one, please.
It happens naturally, right? Like, you kind of feel this is the person.
Weird. Right. So I definitely get those LinkedIn, like, keep my mentor. And I'm like, I don't even know how to respond to that. That's weird, because it does come naturally. People don't just say, I'm your mentor. It flows into it, right? Where you ask for help, the person gives you help. You come back, the person, through their action, respond to that comeback. And then 6 months later, you're like, oh, this person's my mentor. Whether or not we use that language together, you're my mentor, right? And that's the advice that I would give, is that mentors will come to you. You have to decide if you want to engage in that manner. And some people are not mentors. Some people are sponsors. I am much more of a sponsor to more people than I am a mentor. A mentorship relationship takes a lot of time, right? But I always tell folks, there are a lot more people in my life who I don't know really well, but they're like, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, let's have a 30-minute call, blah, blah, blah. Who can I connect you with? Right? That's definitely more of a sponsorship relationship. But I do think that mentorships are a very magical relationship that should be built over time, right? Don't ask people, can you be my mentor? It's really weird. But a sponsorship is someone where you're just going to them once a year for a very much like, this is my question, I need an output. A mentor is someone where you're like, I have no clue what's going on. Fix this. And they're the ones that are going to really fuel into you. And I've been in tech for about 10 years, 10 years. And so since I graduated from college, and I have literally just slowly and steadily kind of built my bag of mentors. So I have lots of them, but it's not because I asked for them. It's because we met along the journey and we stayed in contact. And I was like, oh yeah, so you're just going to be part of this. You may not know it yet, but you're part of it, right? Yeah.
This is beautiful. When it comes to career branding, what is the best way to get started for some people in times of COVID? I know it has changed a lot, but some principles might have stayed. So what is your view? What are your tips on this?
My best tip for career branding is to know yourself first. I get really tired of people trying to build a career brand that is not authentically them.
Yeah.
And this is why. When you know yourself, and it can be as simple as, I want a part-time job. It can be as simple as, I work to make money so I can then go enjoy my life, versus I work because I want to be a CEO. Those are two different career brands, right? So until you do your work to understand what I want out of life, not out of a career, what I want out of life, you really can't start building a career brand. And I've seen many times where people build these career brands and they're cute, but ultimately they're fake. And the fakeness of it will not help you in the end, right? The long-term, short-term game, you will win in the short term, you will not win in the long term. So that's the first thing, because when you really understand what you want your career to look like, then you can build a brand that matches that. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think that part of a brand is for you to understand how you work, right? So I always tell people I don't do well with micromanagers. So my career brand is very anti-micromanager, and everybody knows that, right? I could never build a strong career brand where I'm like, yes, and my manager's there every single day and all the time, because that's just not who I am. And I think that we use these very interesting terms like career branding and professional development, and all that stuff means is you need to go figure out who you are and then come to work and tell me who you are. Because you're not going to be happy at work if you don't know who you are, right? So if you are like me, where you don't like to be micromanaged, for example, if you have a micromanager, you're going to hate your job. Well, but you haven't identified, I don't like my job because my manager is a micromanager. You've just said, I don't like what's going on right now. For all we know, you might like the work. You might like your colleagues. You might like the building, but you just can't stand this managerial relationship. So maybe you need to change managers. Or it's, I hate my job because I hate what I'm doing. What do you want to do? I don't know. That's not helpful to me, right? I had a really good friend of mine one day. She said the most amazing thing. She said, when people come to me and ask me for advice on their career, I ask them, what do they want to do? And when they tell me I don't know, my literal response is, okay, so this is like we're in a car going somewhere,
Mhm.
and you've given me the GPS and I ask you, where are we going? And you say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then why are we in the car? Right? So maybe the conversation is, we should talk about how we can get you to figure out what you want to
Yeah.
do, right? But you really have to do this internal work. And I know that sounds, again, very ethereal, for you to have the best career and then therefore have the best career brand, because your career brand is just an extension of your career, right? Like my career brand, I'm very candid. Everybody who works with me knows I am a freedom fighter. I will be the one in the room being like, we talk about how this works with equity. How are we helping people's lives? Right? And that's part of my career brand, but it's really innately just who I am. I've just decided to make it into a career brand by saying this is my brand. But whether or not I had a brand or not, that would just innately be who I was,
Yes.
right? So yeah, figure out who you are. Figure out who you are. Do the work. Do the
Yeah,
work.
it's what I'm observing, that sometimes people are trying to become someone they're not because it's trendy, because you should become a CEO, as you said. I mean, like, because it's like what is portrayed in media. So I think it's important to listen to your inner voice and figure out who you want to be and how you want to impact the world, right? As you said,
Right.
if I wouldn't be calling this person like career brandings, it would be part of me, and regardless where I am, what I do, tech or not,
Right.
right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool. I love that. And I think this is like super important. Do you feel that COVID is teaching us to rediscover our authentic self, like we selves do, like we have more time to actually dive in and do this tremendous work to rediscover our authentic selves?
Yes and no. I think that for some people, it definitely is. I'm telling everyone that 2020 for me is the year of pause. So I'm using this year to really do a lot of self-reflection and self-worth, and like, what do I want to do in the next 2 to 3 years, and who am I? And I'm really intentionally doing that because COVID has required us to sit down, right? But I also do want to make space and make sure people understand that if you during this crazy pandemic, the fact that you have time to breathe is a privilege. And so as you are breathing, because many people don't have time to breathe, what the pandemic has also shown us is the amount of inequity in this world, right? And we're talking about essential workers, we're talking about parents who don't have jobs so they can stay at home. And we're talking about people who don't have literal home structures where they can do school and work and home at the same time. And so I think this is also a year of gratitude, and to figure out, what are you grateful for? What are the blessings that you have been given in your life, whether you've worked for them or they've just come to you, right? But if you are in this privileged state of you actually have the mental capacity to be like, what's next? This is the perfect time to do that because no one's doing anything else. So this is the perfect time to decide, what is this career brand? And remember, all a career brand is, and people won't say this, all a career brand is you just saying, this is my career brand, and finishing the sentence. Because your career brand is you, right? Yeah. So for example, if you are a listener, if you are an active listener at work and you're really good at that, if you want that to be your career brand, then you need to put that on LinkedIn and be like, hey, my career brand, active listener, I'm the best at it. Boom. Right. And now it's become a brand. Right. So I think that people many times put all this effort into creating a brand. And I'm very much like, just do what you normally do and just put career brand in front of it. That's your brand. Right. And then think of ways on how you can monetize that and how you can receive more opportunities from that, right? I always tell folks, we should all be in a state where you never have to look for a job again. And that's what a career brand does for you. When you're at work minding your own business and someone reaches out to you and says, hey, we have this opportunity. And that's always been my goal in my career brand, was I was like, I'm tired of looking for jobs. Looking for jobs is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to build this career brand, i.e., I'm going to let everyone know. I'm going to publicize my accomplishments. I'm going to tell people about what I do. I'm going to meet a lot of people and get to know them. So then if things are open at other companies or other opportunities, instead of me having to scour the internet for them, they just give me a call. So that's what you should be thinking about.
I love that. That's absolutely beautiful and wise message to all of our participants. Thank you very much for this great chat, Lexi. And I think that we need to chat more and have you speak, because I feel like it's not enough time. And and unfortunately the time wasn't on our side. But I think that it's not about the amount of time we had, it's about the message you sent out there. We touched so many important points. I think that I personally learned a lot from you. I love your energy. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and like lots of wisdom from you, and it's like very inspiring and recharging. So thank you very much. Keep please doing what you're doing. I really love seeing you talk, love seeing you doing different interviews and learning more and more wisdom from you. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, you as well. And thank you for building this wonderful community.
Thank you. We have lots of questions. Please, as discussed, you can message them on LinkedIn.
Yes, any of your questions, just message
we didn't have time, unfortunately, for them. And next time. See you. Have a nice day.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for waiting for us. And I saw all your nice comments and questions in the chat. Do you appreciate them? Please, networking area is live. Lexi, if you're still here, you can join too. Forgot to tell that to her because we wanted to finish it on the positive side. I always feel energized after talking with Lexi. She's truly inspiring. And next, in 2 weeks, I believe we're going to have another fireside chat. And we have our nomination and our categories running for awards open until 29th of October. So it's until Thursday next week, I believe. So if you know a truly amazing, phenomenal woman in tech, you can go ahead and nominate her. If you consider yourself to be suitable for a role, don't hesitate and go nominate yourself. And help us spread the word about the awards. Women Tech Global Awards are going to happen on the 3rd of December. And yeah, we're going to celebrate amazing women in tech out there, because I know that they have done a lot throughout this year. The year has been very challenging and dynamic and hard for many of us. And I want us to take this moment of gratitude and to celebrate them. So feel free to, we have provided the link in the pinned message. You see here, sign up for the Women Tech Global Awards 2020. And on top, you see the link. Yes. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for your thanking comments. I do appreciate that. And go, please enjoy the networking. See you online.